Hello, friends. Today we are moving on to the third chapter of literary criticism. Here we deal with Horace, who stands out as the most influential of Roman critics. Before we discuss Horace, let's have a brief introduction to Roman criticism. Around 1st century BC, the center of literary and cultural activity shifted from Alexandria in Greece to Rome, the capital of the Roman Empire. With the age of Augustus Caesar, there dawned a golden age of poetry and criticism, dominated by the figures of Virgil, Ovid, and Horace. Several factors contributed to the flowering of art and literature in Rome. Primary reason was Augustus Caesar and his courtiers patronized art. It was an age of peace, not war, so men turned to literature to achieve distinction. There was an upsurge of nationalism in Rome, and a need was felt to equal or excel the Greek masters. So there was a revival of Greek classicism in Rome. Both Virgil and Horace pleaded for the study of Greek classics. A number of poetasters, which means inferior poets, were turning inferior verse, corrupting and degrading public taste. There was increased critical activity against this. Horace began a new tradition in literary criticism. Throughout his poetry runs a criticism of contemporary manners, morals, politics, and thought. The main body of his critical theory is contained in Ars Poetica, or The Art of Poetry, a work which equaled Aristotle's Poetics in its influence during the Renaissance. Ars Poetica seems formless and unsystematic, but a closer examination reveals a well-marked scheme of treatment. The subject matter falls into three divisions: poiesis, or the treatment of the subject matter of poetry; poema, or form; poeta, or the poet. Ars Poetica opens with the assertion that a poem must have an organic unity. Poetry, according to Horace, is not mere imitation. It is a creative adaptation. The poet is free to indulge his fancy, but he must not create monstrous or impossible figures. Poiesis introduced the term purple patch, a brilliant or ornate passage in a literary composition, usually in the midst of mediocrity. The subject, chosen wisely, should be simple and consistent. Horace further says that the language of poetry is different from, finer and higher than, the language of the common man. A wise discretion or moderation must be exercised in the choice of words. Horace recognized that language is in a constant process of change. Language is like a tree, and words are leaves which wither every year and are succeeded by new ones. A poet can coin new words and revive old ones, but this should be done with discretion only when absolutely necessary. A particular genre should stick to the meter allotted to it by the ancient Greeks. For epic poetry, iambic pentameter should be used. For poems of Campbellite, elegiac verse. For tragedy or comedy, iambic verse, and so on. Poema is the most thoroughly handled of the three divisions, and drama is a form of poetry treated at length to the exclusion of the lyric and the epic. The plot should be based on old familiar stories, and novelty may be imparted by skillful treatment. New themes may be invented, but for the successful treatment, the poet requires great skill. A plot construction should plunge straight into the middle of things, in media res as in Homer. Comic themes should not be treated in the lofty vein of tragedy, or tragic themes in the low vein of comedy. All the incidents of the plot should have a logical connection. In characterization, the poet must be true to life. Characters must be consistent. Those drawn from tradition must preserve their traditional traits. The quality of characters must fit their respective ages. Children should be shown quick to anger and quick to cool, boys fond of sport, reckless, fickle, high-spirited, etc. Horace further states that the dramatist must know what to represent on the stage and what to report to the audience. Ugly and horrible incidents should happen off stage. A play should not have more or less than 5 acts. There must not be more than 3 characters in any one scene. The gods should not intervene in the action unless when absolutely essential. The denouement should be the natural outcome of the incidents and not a matter of chance. The chorus should form an integral part of the play. The Greek model should be strictly followed. The poet who wants to achieve excellence must read them by day and meditate by night. In fact, Horace is a big admirer of the Greek models. The third division of Ars Poetica deals with poeta or the poet. It states that the art of poetry is the outcome of incessant toil. A poem should be revised, blotted several times until it attains artistic excellence. The poet must not be in a hurry to publish his works and should let it stand for a decade. He must wait. A poet must be a keen observer of men and manners. Nobility and dignity of soul are also necessary. Regarding the function of poetry, Horace follows the general classical view that poetry should both teach and delight, with greater stress on teaching. A poet should instruct or please, or he may combine both these functions. But for the sake of pleasing, he should not indulge in romantic extravagances. He should aim at mixing pleasure with profit. He should be brief. Minor faults in poetry may be forgiven because even good humor nods. A poet should, however, try to avoid faults as much as he can. Great poets have been great prophets, so a poet should not feel ashamed of his art. He must be proud of it. Horace considers the idea of poetic madness or inspiration as absurd. The treatise ends with a satiric portrait of a mad poet. When we try to evaluate Horace as a literary critic, his main limitation is that his criticism contains much that is borrowed and lacks in originality. His theories are not derived from actual literature, but are based on the theories of Aristotle and their later interpretations. On the contrary, he has so many achievements. There, Horace asserts the supremacy of classical Greek art and thus inaugurates a new phase in the history of literary criticism. Regarding the imitation of the ancients, he does not advocate slavish copying but a process of recreation, adaptation, and evolution of something new out of the old. His pronouncement on diction, form, unity, brevity, etc. are of lasting value. And Horace stands out as the most influential of Roman critics.